disruption used an awful lot today, and I can't imagine a better term to describe the world that we live in. Industries, businesses that have been leaders in their area for decades are suddenly finding themselves being challenged by companies that only existed a couple of years ago. We're seeing completely new economic models being introduced. Now, as a futurist, my job is to help businesses have a better understanding of what forces are driving those changes and disruptions so they can better anticipate what opportunities might exist. And Tony's asked me to talk a little bit about opportunities that might exist in terms of healthcare with the coming disruptions. Now, it's really interesting when you talk about healthcare as an institution, because so far it really hasn't been as disrupted as many other industries. And there are a couple reasons. It's highly regulated. It requires an extensive amount of knowledge and expertise to be successful in healthcare. And there's a ton of infrastructure that actually exists that you have to sort of figure out how you compete with. None of those will actually be good enough to protect it from the disruptions that are going to be coming in the next 5 to 10 years. All of those were excuses that all of the other industries that find themselves out of business used in the past. It's really very simple. Healthcare is going to be disruptive in a big way. What I want to do is suggest some ways that you can think about how that might actually create opportunity instead of challenge. So in the next few minutes, I'm going to talk about 5 topics that I think will change healthcare in the next 10 years. The first one, we are all connected all the time. We are obsessed with these devices that we all have out right now, that for some reason we call cell phones, which I don't understand, right? It's not a cell phone. These are our gateway to the world. They connect us in a new and different way with our family, our friends, complete strangers that we might want to hook up with, and oh yes, all of the information and knowledge that exists in the world. And you know what? That is totally disruptive what we think about in terms of who owns knowledge and information. In terms of healthcare, one of the biggest sources for finding information, for medical information right now, is for people to go online. If you go look at Google, you'll notice they've changed their entire format. They're actually providing medical advice. If you go into Google and you type in the words medical advice, you get 400 million different hits that pop up. There are tons of people out there providing direct information to consumers. But here's the paradox. It turns out that having all of the information in the world does not necessarily lead to better decisions, or in fact, in many cases, any decision. Some of you are like me old, and you remember a time when you were going to take a trip, and you needed an airplane ticket. You called up something called a travel agent. I know the millennials have never heard of this, right? And they actually booked the ticket for you. Along came Expedia, along came the internet, and what happened? An entire industry was virtually wiped out in 5 years. But you know what one of the biggest trends among millennials is today? Looking for travel agents to actually book their travel for them. There are going to be huge opportunities in knowledge concierge and in curation in the future. Anybody who has the ability to put that together and make sense of it has an opportunity. Second, the trend toward co-creation. Wikipedia has 125,000 people who edit for free all of the information that is in there. Kickstarter has raised over $2 billion for 100,000 projects. And even large companies like General Electric have turned to the crowd. People who do not work for them. People who they often don't even actually pay to find advice, to find new products, to find new marketing. It's a huge trend, and it's actually changing the way we think about what it means to be a consumer and what it means to be a creator. This is happening already in healthcare. Uber Health was an experiment that was run in New York and Boston for one day, where when you called up for your Uber, you could also call up for a flu shot. And for free, they sent a nurse out to give you a flu shot. MedStarter is actually a Kickstarter for medical devices. So the opportunity here is really pretty simple. If you have an idea, why not tap the crowd to help you fund it? Why not look to the people who actually want the product that you might want to be creating as the ones who help you develop the product? Completely changes, particularly when you talk about medicine and patients, the relationship that exists in the past, because it's no longer top-down. It's now actually bottom-up. Quantified trust. How many of you have a Fitbit or some other sort of band on? Anybody here? Wow, you guys are really into this. That's great. Normally most people don't do that. Wearable computing. We started with these little devices that we could wear that tells us how many steps we take every day so we can brag with our friends and compete and supposedly be more healthy, are going to explode in the next 10 years. The numbers are going to be amazing, and they're not just going to be things that are going to tell you whether or not you toss and turn when you sleep. In the medical world, we're already seeing major advances in terms of wearable computing. At MIT, they're actually creating a wearable sensor that will look like skin. You won't even be able to see it. And these are connected to the internet so that they can provide real-time feedback for your physical and medical situation. Now, that's really impressive because what it does is it gives doctors and hospitals the ability to know what's wrong with you when you really need for them to know that. But most of what's going on in this world today is sort of one-way communication. It might actually send the information to your doctor or your healthcare provider. There's another disruption that's going to come along though, and this is what's going to really radically change this. Anybody have an Amazon Echo? Well, a few people. Okay, you have something that's watching your every move in your home. That's good for you. That's just the beginning. What is happening is we're not only connecting people, but we're connecting all of the devices that actually exist out there, and the devices can now talk to each other. So no longer will it be important that that monitor tell my doctor something, but it will be important that that monitor tell my doctor's computer something. And that computer will talk to another machine somewhere else, and that machine might talk to the computer in the pharmacy, and we're completely creating a new form of communication and a new conversation. There are tons of amazing possible innovations that come out of that. But here's the thing. It's all about my data. It's all about your data. It's all about stuff that is incredibly important to all of us that we generally don't like to talk about. So the question is, who will they trust? We already know they don't trust the insurance companies. That's just not going to happen. It's a pretty good chance that government won't take this on because they don't want to take on the risk. The current existing hospitals and medical institutions, they can't even get their data online, right? They're still trying to do that. So there is a huge opportunity here for those industries that come along and say, we can be trusted, we can use this information, we can create personalized and just-in-time treatment for everyone, and you will trust us to make sure that we keep it safe. Number 4, smart machines. Now, robots are not new in medicine, right? Robotic surgery is incredibly popular. We're seeing it everywhere. But most of those machines actually cost millions of dollars, and they only do one or two things. The real disruption is going to come in other areas of robotics. In Japan, which leads America probably by about 10 years in the robotics world, they're finding something really interesting. They don't have enough people to take care of their growing and aging population, so they're having to use care robots. Not only are they effective, but it turns out that senior citizens bond better with robots than they do with home health care systems. Huge explosion that's going to happen in terms of the future with the ability to have machines that actually can do everything from take care of us to create our drugs to become our pharmacists. Then it even becomes more interesting. All of you know about Watson the computer and how it won Jeopardy. You know what it's doing today? It's diagnosing diseases for people. It has the ability to read through all of the case files, all of the data that's out there, plus all of those medical journals that get published every day, and come up with patterns that help it be better at actually diagnosing disease than even a doctor with 20, 30, or 40 years of experience. What's the opportunity? Clearly in Florida, and particularly in Central Florida, the idea of actually developing all of these robotics and artificial intelligence is a huge opportunity because we already lead the country in simulation and modeling. We understand this better than everybody else. We've got a workforce, huge opportunity there. But the other question is, who's going to deploy these? Who's going to manage the artificial intelligence and robotic workforce? Nobody has figured that part out. Who is the manpower of the robot age? Finally, 5, manufacturing 2.0. How many people have a 3D printer at home? You guys seem to have all the other toys, I'll ask. Anybody? Oh, you don't have those yet. You've heard about 3D printing, right? Okay. Let's be honest. Right now, it's in the hype cycle. Everybody tells you how incredibly great it is and everything else. It's not. It's 5 to 10 years away from being really effective and incredibly powerful. But think about how fast that cell phone technology has changed, and you get a sense of what's out there. Already today, we're seeing a huge rise in the use of 3D printing to create prosthetics, many times free, created by the crowd, and given to people on the other side of the earth who actually need them and don't have the income to get them. We're already seeing experiments in terms of creating organs, tissues, all sorts of things that actually can be 3D printed. And there are people who are talking about the ability to 3D print drugs on demand. What's the opportunity? The factories of the future will not be giant institutions like they were in the past. There'll be something called maker labs, and those are popping up all over the place. In fact, we have one in Orlando at the public library. Somebody has to build those maker labs. Somebody has to train the people who are going to work in those maker labs, and somebody has to help them get access to the information and the tools that they actually need. Wow, that was fast. Those are just a few of the kinds of things that are going to be disrupting healthcare in the coming years. The next 5 to 10 years are going to be either very scary or very exciting. The one point I hope you take from this is that if you use a little foresight, if you look beyond this quarter and think about what is possible out there, any business can actually create an opportunity out of all of those disruptions. And I think it can ultimately benefit your company by creating profit, our communities, and all, on the end of the day, creating a better future for all of Florida. Thank you.